So Magneto gets cloned, and this is how we find out. The team are playing basketball outside, and as always, Gambit tries to kiss Rogue. Let's see if we can find that hidden in this page. They accuse Gambit for cheating because he's naturally gifted with athletic powers. Then we cut to Moira and Banshee, who are inside talking with Prophex and Cyclops. Moira lost her son, which happened in the cartoon as well. We all know Moira from the cartoon. And then we are talking about Magneto, who they apparently clone. Okay, so Moira's having a nightmare, and at this time, Moira and Banshee are dating, but Banshee's lost his voice. And then apparently he's a cop too. Then Rogue gets blasted through a wall because, as you saw in a previous image, Gambit has charged the ball before he threw it. That's the part where he's accused of cheating. Wait, it's this part, I guess. We agreed not to use our powers, and then how can we tell if he's using them or not? Because Gambit's powers include natural agility. All right, so here we actually find out that no, it's over here. There's a different scene where also yeah, so we're loving that part where the Cajun rides on top of Wolverine. Right, so Magneto, the part where he comes in earlier is when he finds out that he's been cloned. Let's see where that is. So I got it a little wrong because Magneto is cloned, but that's not the place where we'll get to this part later, all right? I'll tell you who Fabian is and the acolytes are. But yeah, this is the part where we find out Magneto has been cloned. The Magneto that we see in the trailer could be Josef, and I'm excited for it. But a lot of people think I'm wrong. A lot of people think it's not Josef, it's Magneto.
Of Charles Xavier. Everything he built now belongs to me.
So Magneto joining the X-Men actually has to do with a different story where he joins the inner circle, and he's also the acting principal of. Alright, so Magneto takes on the role of principal of the X Mansion, or the school for gifted children, on two occasions. One is Age of Apocalypse. Charles dies, and Apocalypse is the main villain, as they said in one of the breakdowns. And Magneto is in charge of the X-Men. Cyclops is being manipulated by Mr. Sinister, along with Havoc, his brother. And Cyclops is rocking like a long ponytail. He's like a bad boy, although he's still like lawful and all. While an armless Wolverine and Jean Grey are together from the start. Here we have Carol Danvers. I want them to go into the events of. So this happens in Genosha, where Rogue loses her powers, and this is actually Rogue, but Carol Danvers is in the driving seat of their mental facilities. And Wolverine and Carol Danvers used to be spies in the old age. And the reason we're talking about Genosha here is because this is actually Genosha's first appearance. We hadn't heard about Genosha prior to this. This is the very issue that introduces Genosha. And as you can see, Havoc is part of the team. In fact, the team of X-Men right here are made up of all the second. So Storm from Africa, Colossus from Russia, Nightcrawler from Germany, Wolverine from Canada, and that bunch of second generation mutants were actually a replacement for the main team of X-Men some time ago. We still have Rogue and Longshot and Dazzler somewhere here. That's Dazzler and Longshot. They're sort of a couple here. And Psylocke behind that X. So these are some of the things that I want to see in the cartoon, right? The reason I bring up this is because so the original team of X-Men moonlighted as X Factor and also the Exterminators for a while. The world thought that they were dead, and X Factor, um, they couldn't come out in public. So what they did was they acted as a government agency that were hunting mutants, but in fact, they were just exposing the mutants and saving them at the same time, which is a weird thing to do. We have some evil versions of the X-Men. Cyclops, Havoc, and Storm kind of look very mean and all that. This all happens in Inferno. Now, why is Inferno important to us? We heard rumors that Sinister was going to be a main bad guy in the first season, and Sinister was responsible for.
We get this done by working together as a team. Jeez, stop.
Alright, so this stick in Wolverine's mouth, I think it's kind of cool because one of the things they censored in the old cartoon was that Wolverine was always smoking. He's always got a cigar in his mouth, and you can't really show that to kids, right? And he's not the only one who's smoking in this picture. So is Gambit. Who's got his arm on Psylocke? While Rogue's over here. Don't worry about that. It's just a team of X-Men. They just drew it to be nice. Art is art and story is story. But here we got a collaboration of the best two people, right? Claremont and Jim Lee. As you guys might already know, Jim Lee's X-Men was already a thing when the cartoon came out, and the costumes and well, Jim Lee was very responsible for the creation of Gambit, and he later made Grifter out of the same concept, but that's a different story. Right now, we're talking about this little twig or stick in Wolverine's mouth, which kind of makes him look like a cowboy. The what's his name? Who's the famous cowboy that I'm thinking? Clint Eastwood. Yeah, Clint Eastwood. He kind of looks like Clint Eastwood with that little wood chip in his mouth. It's not a cigar, but it kind of is the cigar. And this word.
Jeez, stop. Keep buzzing in my ear.
Wolverine uses the word bub a lot in the comics. He's known for it. In the memes, you can see him using bub. And so we got two things that were removed from Wolverine's character a long time ago. And as you can see from his face, he looks a lot tougher. You don't need to censor it for kids anymore because we've got several Logan movies out there. We've got Deadpool versus Wolverine. Everybody knows what Wolverine's supposed to be like. For us back in the 90s, this was probably our first introduction to most of the characters. Also, the pregnant gene. Oh, yeah. So, Storm's hair right here, she was supposed to originally rock a mohawk. Um, when she was saved from the Shadow King in Egypt and stuff, she was wearing like more leather stuff, and during the mutant massacre, where the cartoon already covered the part where she was for a while the leader of the Morlocks because she defeated Callisto in combat, and that was their tradition, the Morlocks tradition. If you defeat the leader, you become the new leader. And I still love the white costume more than any of Storm's other costumes. Storm's had a few black costumes, one with a cape, one without a cape, and I prefer the one where she's wearing all white. We don't know if she's gonna be coupled with Black Panther in this show, but there's a lot of fanfare for that. If that happens, I'm not actually gonna like it because, Storm has her own history and she doesn't have to be connected to the Wakandans, but still, it's kind of a Black Power moment, so I don't got anything to say about it. They do. Mm, the pregnant Jean. Let's see if I can find her. So that's what you see over there. This light show is probably a reference to Dazzler. We already saw that in Wolverine and the X-Men, didn't we? Where, like, Wolverine, Scarlet Witch. Did I just say Wolverine? Sorry, I meant Magneto. Magneto and his children, Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver and Polaris. Um, they were all. It's either Evolution or I want to say Wolverine and the X Men. That's where, like, we already had Dazzler in one of the cartoons. We had Dazzler in the 90s cartoon as well, right before the Phoenix Saga, but she wasn't like a main character or anything. And she was wearing the headband uniform. Dazzler's all the X-Men, they go through like different costume concepts. Psylocke, Dazzler, even Jean, as you know. But let's see if we can find the pregnant Jean, because there's a the pregnant Jean. All right, somebody's pregnant, and who is this? It's Jean and Cyclops, or is it? That is probably not Jean. That is probably. Let's go back to the Outback. All right, so there was a time when the original five X-Men were thought to be dead, and Wolverine, Storm, uh, Dazzler, Longshot, the Rogue, and a certain person called Madeline Pryor were part of this team. Now, who was Madeline Pryor? So here we got Wolverine. And here we got Colossus. Here we got Havoc. This looks like Psylocke, actually. We got Longshot. And okay, so maybe she's not there right now, but let me introduce you to someone very, very important to the X-Men mythos. So this guy's his name is Portal or something. He's responsible for. So here it's Longshot, Rogue, Dazzler. All the kids are here. And then we have a sixth member of the team, or like an extra member of the team. Psylocke's still British and doing very fragile stuff. This right here is Madeline Pryor. Who is she? Well, she's a pilot. She doesn't have much powers. She's actually a pilot, and they've given her the mainframe to like keep a lookout on all things. She's more like the cerebro, and she looks a lot like Jean because she's a clone of Jean. All right, so this is what happens. After the Dark Phoenix saga, Jean dies, at least for a moment, but she doesn't actually die. And the woman that takes her place is Cyclops goes to visit his parents. And all right, so here we got earlier I was telling you about Genosha, right? So we got So in comics, you got something called the splash page, which is the one that introduces you to the actual story. This is actually just a signboard, um, but we, you know how like even in the cartoon, the panels kind of take you through like first you give them the setting and then all right. So here's what happens. There's like some serious civil rights stuff going on in Genosha. People are being exploited and all that. So Madeline Pryor takes her friend for a visit to. I mean, so Madeline knows somebody whose child is held hostage or something, and therefore she's quite a bit of a hero. Like even without her powers, she actually contributes quite a lot to the best of her abilities. And all the way in Genosha, she's kind of important. Um, she's in a cell as well. All right, so Madeline Pryor's keeping watch in the watchtower, sort of like she's being the Cerebro. This is actually a lot like Cerebro. The team is away on action and she's like sulking and she's like, nice of them to leave a message telling me they're off on a mission. Hope it goes well. Wonder what I'll do if it doesn't. Funny how the place gives everyone else the creeps. Something, something. So her job is just to, like, sit back and wait for stuff to happen at this point. Zorro had his Z, the Lone Ranger, silver bullet. I wonder, Longshot and Dazzler both wear stars on their uniform. I wish this would be explained in the future, and Shatterstar would have a bigger role. So, anyways, she's watching the news feed and she suddenly sees Cyclops and Jean, the real Cyclops and Jean. This is Madeline, and this is Jean. This is Madeline, and this is Jean. Now, it's not that striking because the version that I'm showing you is in black and white, because, it's all about the pencils, man. The inks and the pencils, both present in this comic. The color just, in my opinion, it just takes away from the main effects. All right, so she discovers that her husband is living a life with her actual son and the other wife. So it's like, all right, so what's interesting about X-Men, the cartoon or whatever, is that they kind of touch on the subject of cuckoldry. During Dark Phoenix, Cyclops really had to fight for his woman. And his woman, on the other hand, was really cuckolding him for, well, I mean, everybody's got their reasons for what's happening. But as you can see here, the actual mother of Cable, Cyclops' son, is Madeline Pryor. And Madeline Pryor, she gets knocked out when she sees the feed. So this is Madeline Pryor in her own head, imagining a sweet life with her husband and her son. There's nothing she's ever wanted anymore. Of course, she's unconscious, right? So something happens in the dream. She's having a nightmare. This sweet dream turns into a nightmare the moment Jean comes back. Right now, Jean is like a mannequin, but Cyclops just tears her wings away, takes her son away and gives it to the mannequin, and removes her hair, her eyes, her lips, and puts everything back on Jean. Madeline's left with nothing, and Jean takes everything. Although, I mean, so it's unfair, right? A lot of what happens. So this is the Brood. We've already seen the Brood in the cartoons. Uh, oh yeah, Chris Claremont is really heavy on religion, and I wouldn't say he's a religious man, but he does criticize a lot about. We'll see whether Wolverine is an atheist or like what do you call it, agnostic. All right, so We'll talk a little more about atheist. No, let's do it right now. Atheist and agnostic, right? So, a friend of mine, he went through the theory of what it means to be agnostic or atheist. He said agnostic is not knowing, and Gnostic is knowing. So, if you really believe in God, you're a Gnostic theist. You believe in God and you know He's there. If you are an agnostic theist, that means you believe in God, but you don't really have enough proof to say that he does. But you're still open to the idea that he is. If you're atheist, there's two versions of atheist. You're a Gnostic atheist, where like you've been grown up in a culture where evidence for God or like the concept of God is foreign to you, so you're an agnostic theist. You know that God doesn't exist, but you can decide to be agnostic as well. The problem with being agnostic is it's all about how it affects your actions and your behavior, right? So in theory, those are the definitions, but being an agnostic atheist is dangerous for people and stuff because or for yourself actually, because you can keep yourself in control, but it's gonna it's gonna bite you in the head. Like, sometimes you believe in God and sometimes you don't believe in God. And Wolverine is a perfect example of, like, he's not atheist, he's not theist, he's agnostic, because he's going back and forth between, he's done some terrible stuff and all that, but from time to time, he sees a miracle. So there are times when he goes into church and stuff. It's beautiful. Whereas, like Colossus, he doesn't believe in God because he's Russian. And Nightcrawler, he used to be a priest. Nightcrawler and Colossus are like best friends, and they have some very strong religious conversations. Neither of them know for sure, because, until you meet, but that's all right. So coming back to Cable, or it's important because, and here, Madeline Pryor is trying to seduce Havoc, the brother of Cyclops. Here, there's a baby. This is, I believe, Cable, and Sinister is there. So after she has her nightmare, Madeline Pryor makes a deal with the devil, and that's when Inferno happens. So I'm hoping to see Inferno in the first season. That's all I wanted to say. This video has taken way longer than I wanted it to do, so I'm gonna stop it now before it hits the 30 mark.